Hey guys, I got a lot of questions, so I thought I would just hop on and answer them live because the slides take me so long to answer, and so I just want to make sure I can get through at least a majority of them right now. So I hope you guys are doing really, really well. I'll wait for people to join if they want to join. Tuesdays and Thursdays are the days that I take clients. So as you can see, like I'm usually just focused on clients. I'm focused on getting protocols done. I'm focused on just kind of like getting through the day, being present with my clients. And then Monday, Wednesday, Fridays are more like content, Instagram, that type of day. So I know I don't normally go live on Tuesdays, but I thought, hey, I got some questions to go through, so I'll do that live. It's just easier for me, honestly, to go live sometimes. So is it okay to still be carrying extra weight when you get pregnant, or should you wait? Honestly, I think it's better. Remember that fat is safety, and so keep in mind that when you're a little bit, I don't want to say like a little extra weight, but being too lean is usually more dangerous than having some extra weight. I know we see like having extra weight as like such a bad thing in our culture and our society, but usually the healthiest women tend to be at more of like a 25% to 30% body fat, at least when they're cycling, over like a lower 20% body fat percentage. I got told I have a carbohydrate metabolism disorder. What does this mean? My oat test results. Honestly, I don't know what the practitioner meant by that. I mean, I'm assuming they meant that you're having a hard time getting through like a proper ATP production. So like your mitochondria in your cell, you can go through the Randall cycle or the Krebs cycle. You want your cells going through the Krebs cycle over the Randall cycle, but they can go through the Randall cycle if they can't get through the Krebs cycle well. Pretty much it's like, are you either burning carbs or burning fat? And a lot of times women who have hormonal issues, their body is opting to burn fat even though it's a bad source of fuel because their bodies don't have the proper minerals or nutrients, or they're in the wrong conditions to burn glucose and carbohydrate. So pretty much like poor utilization of carbohydrates. Oh gosh, this is so... I got a facial yesterday, so I'm trying to like let my skin air out. She did a lot of extractions, so just kind of like eat. Can you do FN and be vegan? I'm sure a lot of, if there's any fully nourished students here, they would give you a resounding no, Renee, because being vegan is awful for hormones, it's awful for metabolism, it's awful for detoxification, and I actually personally don't work with people who refuse to make a change. If they are tied to veganism and they don't want to change, then I can't work with them because I absolutely cannot get someone to where they want to go unless they're willing to eat animal products. Eating plants only is not biologically accurate, and it does not support our biochemistry at all, just from a scientific perspective. Hey, Jessica, nice to see you. Just wondering if you can suggest a good support for any anxiety issues. Make sure you're eating enough protein, carbohydrates from the right sources like roots and fruits. When I say protein, like bioavailable animal sources, bone broth, dairy, grass-fed, pastured animals are incredible sources of nutrients and those micronutrients and minerals that provide our cells with what they need. If your diet is on point, you're not eating tons of irritating foods like grains and beans and nuts and seeds, then I would go and look at like magnesium levels. I would be really conscious of liver detoxification. Do you have all the nutrients that you need to support detoxification? And do you have enough nutrients to make progesterone? Because usually in us ladies, low progesterone is what's going to be the main driver of anxiety. So progesterone is going to kind of be the thing that I often recommend women check when they are struggling with anxiety. And then if that's not an issue, then I always recommend looking to gut issues. Where's the irritation coming from? And what foods are really bothering you? But usually it's a nutrient issue, mineral issue, stress issue. The body doesn't have exactly what it needs to thrive, and so therefore it's compensating with a lot of, it's stuck in a survival state. That's pretty much what anxiety is, being stuck in a survival state. It's a heightened sense of awareness, right? You're constantly conscious of your environment. You're constantly like stressed about your environment because you're in a state of survival. It's a natural instinct. Do you recommend a good brand recommendation for HCl? Usually it just kind of depends. Usually HCl with pepsin is a good idea. I like one by Doctor's Best, which actually has bitters added to it. Which is kind of like helps stimulate hydrochloric acid. So I really like Doctor's Best HCl, but those are a little bit lower dose. You'll find that a lot of hydrochloric acid supplements are a lot lower of a dose, like maybe 150, 250 milligrams. And so Integrative Therapeutics, it's the one that has the yellow label on it, has a higher dose HCl, which can sometimes be helpful if you need like a lot of it. You don't have to take as many pills. So Integrative Therapeutics is for people who need higher dosages of HCl. How often do you take desiccated beef liver? Is it something that you always take daily or eventually take a couple times a week? Honestly, when I first started taking it, I took it every single day, full dose. Now I'm a little bit more conscious because I don't want to, usually supplements I kind of take very intuitively now because I don't really want to, I guess, like, waste them quickly. So with beef liver, I'll usually take 3 capsules a day during the winter because I don't want to get sick. I want my immune system to stay really strong and I don't have time to get sick. But then usually during the summer, I'll kind of take it like every other day or every couple of days. But if it's for a client who is really in need of a lot of nutrients, trace minerals, usually I'll recommend them take it every day until further notice, until they're feeling better and they can maybe take it a little bit more sporadically. Also, thoughts on CoQ10 supplementation. Personally, CoQ10 is very expensive, and there's nothing that vitamin K can't do, or there's nothing that vitamin K can't do. And vitamin K actually acts very similarly to CoQ10. It's a lot more bang for your buck in regards to liver health and having a lot of the same functions as CoQ10. So personally, I would opt for vitamin K over CoQ10 because so many people are deficient. Vitamin K2, I usually just recommend Jarrow brand, like Jarrow MK7, but a friend of mine recently found or discovered a brand called Innovix, INNOVIX, and it's a little bit of a higher dosage of K. So I've been liking that. Love your backdrop. Where did you get it? I got it on Etsy. I think it's called J. Francis Designs or something. He has like so many different tapestries that you can buy. Can you talk about red light therapy, what it's good for, how long to do it for, etc.? Yeah, red light therapy is really excellent because remember guys, our body fundamentally needs red light spectrums, the actual spectrums of red light, in order to create hormones. So we actually need vitamin A and red light in order to synthesize or make hormones out of cholesterol. And when we are red light deficient, we have a very hard time making progesterone and DHEA. Remember, DHEA turns into estrogen and testosterone. So pretty much all of our sex hormones and then also our thyroid hormones. And so this is why during the winter time, we tend to be a lot more like immunosuppressed. Our immune systems don't work as well. We tend to gain a lot more weight in the wintertime, maybe get a little bit more depressed or sad in the wintertime because we're not getting as much red light. Remember, the sun provides red light. So when we supplement red light with a red light therapy device, we are actually speeding up our metabolisms and encouraging our body to synthesize and make hormones. Now remember, we need the nutrients and the minerals to the building blocks of those hormones, the cholesterol to build those hormones, but the red light is going to stimulate the creation of those hormones. So red light therapy is essentially incredibly important for your mitochondria, your cellular function, and the creation of hormones. Gelatin causing periods to be heavier, detoxification pathways, minerals first. Maybe minerals first. If gelatin's causing periods to be heavier, I wonder if it's opening up detoxification because remember, to go through phase 2 of detoxification of estrogen, it requires a lot of glycine, which interestingly enough, gelatin is very rich in the amino acid glycine. So if it's causing irritation, it could be people that are extremely sensitive to histamines, things like red wine and bone broth and shellfish, can sometimes be sensitive to gelatin as well. But if that's not the case, if you're not really histamine sensitive, then I would maybe assume it could be that phase 2 detox is working a lot better and you're moving estrogen out. But I would experiment, like if that doesn't get better, then the gelatin is causing maybe an issue and you're not tolerating it well. But if you're seeing that improve over time, like every cycle it gets better and better, then I would say you're probably actually detoxifying and opening up that liver, because that liver requires lots of glycine. So that would be something really great. What are your thoughts on dermal fillers and Botox? I've heard such mixed things. You're literally injecting botulism, which is a neurotoxin, into your face near your brain. Need I say more? Like, I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't understand why women are obsessed with stopping the aging process. Just because it's a fine line does not mean it's ugly or you're any less worthy. In fact, I think skin that's taken well care of, you've kind of earned your lines. You've earned your facial expressions. It means that you've lived. And that's just like a personal take on aging. But I don't understand why a woman's literally willing to poison her body in order to reverse aging. And then some other things to think about is a lot of women, make sure you're researching the percentages of women that have depression after Botox. Remember, every muscle in your face sends a signal to your brain. So I don't know if you ever noticed, but when you're not feeling great or you're kind of feeling sad or down, you watch a funny video or someone makes you laugh and you instantly feel happier. It like gives you that release, like you feel like laughing or smiling actually makes you feel better. And that is the truth. When your muscles move in your face, they actually send signals to your brain. And so when you freeze the muscle in your face, you can actually cause serious mental or mood issues because you're not able, those muscles are no longer communicating with the brain. So I don't understand why people are so willing to think that they're wiser than their body and that injecting things into your face doesn't have really bad long-term consequences. I would just leave it alone. In my opinion, like I would never do that, no matter how saggy I look. I'm in a nutrition class and my professor is eating me alive because I drink so much OJ in a week. She's a complete stickler when it comes to sugar. Tips on how to politely respond when she calls me out. That is really rude. Like, you should definitely set up boundaries. What I eat and what I consume has nothing to do with you. First of all, like, that is so crazy that she even feels like it's okay to call someone out for her nutrition. Yikes. But, I usually would say like fructose, I would just kind of give her like a really like high quality response. Like, the fructose in orange juice is stimulating my liver. I really like the potassium and the trace minerals it provides. And keep in mind, it is very rich in naringin and naringenin, which are both anti-inflammatory compounds in the intestines and the digestive tract. Also, keep in mind it's an aromatase inhibitor, and we are exposed to endocrine disruptors with an estrogenic nature on a daily basis. Obviously, you guys can see why I wanted to be a lawyer first. Like, just give it back to her. Like, literally, like, chant that over and over. Practice it in the car on your way. And, like, know exactly what you're going to say next time she brings it up. Because, dude, like, I would destroy her. Like, if anyone had the balls to call me out on drinking orange juice, ooh, like, I would just be like, boom. I can't believe she, like, does that. That's crazy. My progesterone is 0.18. No wonder I'm always anxious. How do I boost progesterone? I highly recommend watching my story highlight labeled progesterone. I literally talk about how to boost progesterone. A lot of people say like, oh, if I'm low on progesterone, will my progesterone always be low? And it's like, no, remember, if you're not ovulating well, there's a reason. And so remember, the goal is to ovulate and ovulate well so you make enough progesterone. Because remember, when you drop an egg, that emptied egg sac becomes a gland that's going to create you progesterone for 11 to 14 days. That egg sac and that egg needs to be really healthy. Where does that egg sac come from? The cell of your ovaries. And so your ovarian cells need to be really, really healthy in order to make a healthy gland, because that gland's being made from an emptied egg sac. And so you need to be really hyper-focused on the nutrients that you need to keep your ovarian cells healthy. And keep in mind, this is why I constantly talk about stress and constantly talk about depletion and making sure you have enough nutrients, because if you're depleting yourself of nutrients and you're not replenishing those nutrients, what makes you think that your ovaries are going to be the priority? Your ovaries, you don't need them to survive, unfortunately. Like, reproduction is a privilege. It's not a right, unfortunately, in these days. And so your body's going to prioritize nutrients for things like your heart and your brain and your vital organs that you need to stay alive in that moment. And a lot of times women don't realize that, yeah, they have enough to survive, but they don't have enough to thrive. And so when you're trying to get your progesterone levels up and make sure you're making enough, you're first making sure you should be hyper aware if you're ovulating or not. And if you don't know how to track your cycles, I highly recommend Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Tony Weschler. And then making sure that you know how to kind of practice the fertility awareness method. That's really the first step, is knowing if you're ovulating. And then if you're not ovulating, the goal would be to get ovulating. And if you are ovulating, then the goal would be to start working on things to make sure that you ovulate well. But that story highlight will really help you out. Quick question about where were the stories about that you did yesterday? My phone battery died at work when I tried to watch earlier today, but now they've expired and now I'm experiencing FOMO. They were just about Branch Basics and me really liking their cleaning products. And if you wanted to buy their starter kit, they're giving you guys 10% off. Using the code Jessica10. So if that's something you were interested in, I love the cleaning products just because they are super sustainable. Like, you don't have to buy a bunch of bottles or anything like that. You just buy 2 things and they literally last me forever. And if you don't like to make your own cleaning products, it's really nice to be able to buy really clean ones. Hi Jessica, if my period is irregular, and will my Dutch test results still be a good gauge as to where I am? Well, if your periods are irregular, I would usually try to, you probably know if you have some type of pattern. If you don't have any pattern at all, then that might be not very accurate. But if you know you're not ovulating regularly, you might just get a very low progesterone reading. But you can assume that if your periods are really irregular, you're not ovulating regularly, or you're ovulating late. Your follicular phase is really, really long. So, if your periods are irregular, you might not be able to pinpoint the right time, but the goal is to get it after ovulation and before you start your period. So that's kind of the goal, is right in the middle between ovulation and your period. So it's usually very helpful if women start tracking their ovulation and their period so that they can take their Dutch test 5 to 7 days after they ovulate. That's kind of the goal. Do you know anything about treating vertigo, like feeling on a boat? I used to have that, and I've had quite a few clients that haven't. Now, some of my clients actually found that doing something like chiropractic really helped them figure it out. I know one client found that B vitamins helped her out. So honestly, I have not been able to pinpoint what drives vertigo. I haven't found much in my research about it or anything, but I am very curious as to what it is. I don't know if it's a muscular issue or a structural issue, or if it is more nutritional or some type of sinus issue. Honestly, I am not sure. I haven't been able to pinpoint that. Notice I've been waking up randomly in the middle of the night to pee. Could that be a stress issue? Cortisol? Should I utilize a bedtime snack more frequently? Yeah, your intuition is on point. Usually if you have to wake up in the night to pee and you're peeing more than 4 times a day, you've got adrenaline issues. Because remember, adrenaline is a diuretic, and so it's going to flush minerals out, but it's also going to flush water out. And so you'll feel like you pee all the time, no matter how, you drink a lot of water, it just goes right through you. Or you have to wake up in the middle of the night to pee often. Dude, this is so crooked. It's crazy. Okay. Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. I'm really bad. Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, there we go. Yes. So, yeah, I would say it's probably an adrenaline issue, and I would try to experiment with a bedtime snack in order to see if that would help. How can we help our body convert T4 to T3, start in the gut or the liver? Well, it's going to be converted about 80% in the liver and about 20% in the gut. So both would be ideal, but the liver is going to be the most important. Honestly, just keeping your blood sugar balance is literally the fix for that. So making sure you're eating every 3 hours, because keep in mind, you guys, the liver is like a battery pack. It stores about 170 grams of glycogen, which is stored sugar, and its goal is to constantly keep your blood sugar stable. But when you are burning through sugar like crazy, because remember, your cells are fueled with glucose, you're going to burn through glucose quite quickly. So your cells are uptaking it from the bloodstream, and if you're not consuming it, your body has to make it. And how does it make it? It's going to raise cortisol, and it's going to which lowers thyroid hormone. That cortisol is going to break down your tissues, your tendons, your muscles, send that to the liver, and that the liver will convert those amino acids into sugar, right? And then your liver will secrete that into the blood to keep your blood sugar stable. This is why a lot of people who are under stress have a very hard time managing their blood sugar. They find that their waking blood sugar is like through the roof, and they're like, wait, do I have diabetes? And I'm like, no, you have like really bad stress issues. So it's very important to make sure that you are keeping the liver full of sugar so it can convert, and it's not having to constantly obsess about making you sugar to keep your blood sugar stable. You're manually doing it yourself. And so eating a little bit of protein, carb, and fat every 3 hours usually takes care of the problem. You always want to eat a bedtime snack about 30 minutes before going to bed, and then right when you wake up, eat a meal as well. That's the first step. How often to do red light therapy? How many times a day and for how long? Usually like once a day for 10 or 15 minutes will suffice if you're not getting sunlight. But if you're getting sunlight, 15, 20 minutes is awesome. Have a lizard and literally take his red light sometimes. I feel you. I literally tell most of my clients to just buy a lizard lamp, and it works wonders. It's very inexpensive. Hi, Jessica. I've been loving spending some time in the sun every day and was told walking barefoot in the grass has lots of health benefits. Do you know if this is scientifically backed up? Yeah, I mean, grounding does have a lot of benefits. However, you have to be conscious of dirty electricity and what's around you. If you're in a big city, it's probably not a great idea to walk on the grass and the ground that's just positively charged with all those EMFs and Wi-Fi. You're going to soak that right up. So it is important to be conscious. If you're in a more like naturey area, there's not like a big power reformer near you, there's not a huge cell tower or radio tower right there, it's probably a good idea, but it's always in context. You don't want to be like soaking up all that power. I've heard of people actually like grounding in New York and completely blacking out from the amount of just electricity that they picked up from the ground. So it's important to like do it in context, but yeah, it can be very beneficial. What do you think of liposono-bello? Does it just redistribute fat everywhere? Are you talking just about like liposuction, I think? Maybe? Liposuction just takes the whole fat cell out. So again, like I just get kind of weirded out by it because remember, you get at a certain age when you're a child, it really determines how many fat cells you're ever going to get in your life, and then your body will fill those fat cells accordingly. So some kids will have a lot more fat cells than others, and remember, fat cells can be filled 10 times their actual size. So just keep in mind that you can't like remake, I mean you can, there is like scientific evidence coming out that you can technically make fat cells, but it's just not as like, your body doesn't constantly make new fat cells. Your body usually fills the fat cells that you already have. So I don't know, I get weirded out about like taking the whole fat cell out. Sometimes maybe it could be helpful, so I'm not really sure, but I'm sure there are some type of consequence to messing with it. I just get like so weirded out about stuff like that. Like, as I like studied the body and researched the body, I just like, to me, it just like opening up your body and pulling something out is just quite frightening because the body's just so much wiser than me or even the doctor over there. And so I'm always stressed that the doctors be like, oh, it's so safe. And then like 10 years later, it's like recalled, or like, oh, we now realize like that was a horribly savage practice, I got botulism from a board certified doctor and hospitalized for some time. Thank you for telling your story. I know like a lot of people think like, oh, it's completely safe, but you're literally injecting poison into your face. Also, thoughts on supplementing with vitamin E for skin. Is it a waste of money? No, personally, that's a supplement that I take every day, and if it's something that you can afford and it's not a stretch for you, I think vitamin E is a very important supplement. Does ONA ship to Canada? ONA's versus Progest E? I don't know if they ship to Canada. I think they are pretty similar. Progest E is just a little bit more of a little bit different of a delivery, I believe, but I think they're pretty much similarly progesterone suspended and vitamin E, which is usually the best delivery method, not message. So yeah, I don't know if they ship to Canada, but I think they might. You could definitely check on their website. I recently stopped wearing a bra 24/7 after seeing your post or one you shared, and I'm all of a sudden sweating a ton more in my pits. Is there a correlation? Oh, for sure. Bras completely cut off lymphatic drainage, and personally, I went for a whole year. Now I kind of wear like a little like kind of sports bra sometimes because I have really large boobs, and it's just very uncomfortable to like. Honestly, it's more uncomfortable for me to have people staring at my boobs than for me to have my boobs free. That's like the unfortunate thing, but like guys will stare at my boobs and it's just really uncomfortable. So I like will wear like a little bralette or like a sports bra type situation. But I gave up wire bras like 5 years ago, and one of the things that I noticed immediately was like I had like this anxiety, like I could take a deep breath for the first time in my life, or like for the first time ever, and it was just like so freeing to be able to like take a deep breath and not have any kind of hindrance. And then similarly to you, like I started just like sweating so much and so much BO for such a long time. And just remember, like your lymph nodes kind of sit underneath your breast. And so when you're wearing a really tight bra, it's literally pressing on those lymph nodes. And so improper drainage is happening all of the time. So very similar situation. And I would say, yeah, there's probably a correlation. Girl, I have to bite my tongue in my nutrition class. I usually mentally counter her points with the truths I've learned in FN. Very thankful for your program. Dude, I would literally want to destroy her so bad. Just with words, you know? Like, wit and logic just, like, makes me, you know, just happy. Hi, Jess. I asked about the correlation between yellow hardened toenails that are cracking in the half of the liver. Oh, I haven't gotten to that question yet. Honestly, I don't know if it's a correlation to the liver, but I'm sure it has a correlation to something that's going on, whether it's like poor detoxification or mineral issues or even like fungal issues. But yeah, I'm honestly not sure. I have heard people, I've actually had like 2 clients who both, it's really interesting because this was at like very different times, but they both mentioned that they had like hardened yellow toenails or hardened, like one had a hardened yellow nail, and they just went to go get gel polish. And you know, when they do the gel polish, they put your hands in the UV light and they put their toes in the UV light. And I started to notice that the UV light, doing that like every 2 weeks when they got their pedicure or manicure, completely cured them of their toenail issue. And so it made me start to wonder, like, maybe it's bacterial or fungal, right? Because the UV light's like literally killing those bacteria. But that's just kind of like an observation I've made, honestly. Like, I don't really know if there's any truth to that. I just kind of feel like it could be a possibility. Sorry, I lost it. I actually hit this. And any recommendations for egg health or just the basics, protein, fat, carbs, sunlight? Yeah, it's going to be the basics. So mineral balancing is important. At some point, if you're having a hard time with fertility or a hard time, like there's lots of miscarriages, it's important to understand like thyroid's going to be at play, progesterone's going to be at play, and then minerals like magnesium, iodine, and then vitamins like vitamin E, vitamin C, zinc, copper, like all of those are really going to affect the health of the ovaries. So minerals are important. But yeah, basics like keeping blood sugar balance, keeping stress low, making sure you're eating a nutrient-dense diet, making sure you're getting good exercise, sunlight, very good sleep, and then being mindful of what's in your environment toxin-wise. Any recommendations for DIY low-fat skim milk? All sources in NYC have added DNA. Yeah, it's actually required by law to have vitamin A and D in skim milk, in the US at least. So they have to add fat-soluble vitamins if they take the fat out. The only way that I've gotten around it is when I buy raw skim milk, but unfortunately for me, raw skim milk tastes disgusting. I don't know what it is. It's like when you remove the fat from raw milk, like all the flavor is there. And sometimes like it really depends on what the cow's eating, but sometimes the flavor is really rough. So I just handle it. I just deal with it. I just get the stuff that has the vitamin A and D, and it's fine. You know, like I'm not gonna die. The only time that I would not do that is if I was finding that I had really poor digestion or like constantly made me bloated or irritated. But sometimes like there's no way around it. Like you have to get it that way. You can do like organic skim milk powder if you wanted to like rehydrate some milk. Some people will do that. It's a great source of protein and it doesn't have any additives in it like dry milk doesn't. I'm not ovulating, also periods super irregular, usually menstruating every 6 months. Okay, well that would be more like to me of a stress issue. I would definitely be looking into my calories, like how much you're eating, how often you're eating, any type of stressors in your life, like how much are you exercising, how much stress are you under, like those are all things that I would consider if you're having like a period every 6 months. Have you heard of palatomyclonus? Might not be the spelling. And if you have any thoughts on it, I've never heard of that. I'm so sorry. I need to write it down because I'm going to forget, but I really want to know what it is now. If you're constantly freezing, especially hands and feet, is that a thyroid issue? It's a stress issue. It's more that you have cortisol and adrenaline driving your temperature. So a lot of people will say like, oh, my temps are so good. Like I'm at 98.6 and my pulses are like 89. And I'm like, ooh, how are your hands and feet? And they're like, oh, frozen. And I'm like, oh. So that just means the body's really running off of stress a lot of the time and not actually utilizing the fuel that we're eating, or we're not eating the right types of fuel or enough fuel. So yeah, the goal would be to get those hands and feet warm as well as those temps and pulses. Awesome, thank you. Also, I agree you'd make a kick-ass lawyer and would destroy the person in a debate that says oranges are bad. Yeah, I would only want to debate about nutrition, that's it. But yeah, I feel like it would be like a great like stress relief. Like I was like, maybe I should just be a lawyer part-time. Like it would really just help me like feel very like, I need some type of stimulation. I'm starting to get, Instagram can sometimes be very like frustrating because, you know, there's so many amazing people, so many like, so many of you guys are so amazing, but then there's like also those people that just want to like fight, you know, fight in the DMs or like fight in the comments. And for me, like I'm somebody that like, I'm not very good at like just letting things roll off my back, and so I'm working on it. My professor also loves to talk about glucose being the primary energy source of the body, but then demonizes things like sugar and milk. Like, where's the logic? Exactly. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, where's the logic? And you can also like remind her that fructose stimulates that glucose to store as glycogen in both the muscles and the liver tissue, which helps with things like hypoglycemia and helps with things like keeping blood sugar balanced longer term. So when you consume fructose with glucose, you're actually encouraging the storage of glucose into the glycogen stores instead of a blood sugar response or a fat cell storage. So just take that, Miss Professor. Do you have a go-to protein, carb, fat meal? Yeah, I do. It's going to be a steak and potatoes, literally. And I know that sounds like really like people are like, oh my gosh, the steak and potato diet. But literally, I would say at least like 6 meals a week are just like a piece of steak that's been cooked. I usually just will like crust it and like I'll dip it in like salt and herbs really quick and then just like throw it in a pan really quick. And I like my steaks, over time I've liked them rarer and rarer because they're easier to digest, because the rarer your steak is, the more enzymes are in it. But yeah, I'll just like quickly cook a good piece, like I'm not like having like a ginormous steak. I'm probably cutting that ginormous steak in half. And then that has the saturated fat and the protein. And then I'm going to air fry some potatoes really quickly. And that's going to be my meal a lot. Or it'll be like a piece of white fish with a little butter and lemon and potatoes, or fruit. Like if fruit's in season. Right now I've just been leaning a lot more on root vegetables and squashes and stuff because there's not a lot of fruit that's in season that I love to eat. Like I'll have an apple here and there, but I'm not like, apples. I got some grapes the other day and I was like, these aren't ready yet. So like there's a lot of fruit that's not in season quite yet, but I know that once fruit's more in season, I'll definitely lean on fruit a lot more. But I've definitely been doing lots of potatoes because my digestive system really likes those. And then I do like milk for snacks because for me, like I'm working back to back with clients, especially on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I like need a quick something. So like today, one of my snacks was just like a carrot and a big glass of milk. And then I had another snack. Okay, I just discovered this amazing, delicious thing. It's a little bougie, but honestly, I don't even care. I got some aged Parmesan just at Trader Joe's, which is like $3. It's not super bougie. And then I got some honeycomb, which is the bougier part. But I love honey because the fructose helps like with insulin sensitivity. It's such a great source of energy. And I took like a slice of honeycomb and a slice of Parmesan cheese and I married it, and it's so good. I did that today and I was just like, oh my gosh, what is this? So I'll probably be obsessing over that snack for like the next, I don't know, 3 weeks. You know, when you like obsess, you eat it, and then you're like, I'm sick of it. So try it. If you haven't tried honeycomb before with a piece of Parmesan cheese, delish. So those are kind of like some things that I've been doing lately. But my meals are so simple, guys. It's actually like stupid. Like I'm like, oh, I wish I was so exciting with my meals, but every day I usually wake up and will fry 2 or 3 eggs. When I'm feeling a little crazy, I'll scramble them instead. And then I usually will have like a piece of sourdough or some fruit. And and then like I have a really milky coffee. So a big like mug that's like half milk, half coffee, and a bunch of maple syrup kind of frothed together. That's my breakfast almost every morning, unless I'm feeling like something like maybe the occasional sprouted oatmeal. My snack is always going to be a raw carrot salad and most likely a glass of milk because it's easy and quick and something I can have mid-morning. My lunch is always going to be some type of protein, like I said, like steak and potato or fish and potato or shellfish and potato. And then like a snack is going to be something like my flavor of the week. So like I said today, like it's Parmesan and honeycomb, but sometimes it's like having a smoothie. Like sometimes I'll go through like a smoothie phase where I'm just like smoothies. And then like sometimes I'll want to do like fudge and some coffee, or like it's kind of my yummy time. So like mid-afternoon is kind of like, what do I want to have? What is indulgent to me? Like I've already had like, 6 hours of work. I'm 6 hours of work in. Like I want to have like a little bit of a break with a little bit of a delicious snack. And then dinner is going to be something similar to lunch. Honestly, a lot of times it's the same thing as lunch. I will literally make my lunch big and then I'll have half at lunch and half at dinner because I work from home. So that works for me, but obviously people are going to have a little bit of a different of a schedule. But that's kind of me. Like I'm just very simple with my eating because I enjoy it and I don't really have the time to be very inventive, at least right now. What vitamin E supplement do you take? I take Unique, and I actually recommend that in Fully Nourished, but I just kind of discovered a new one, Swanson's Vitamin E, that's made from sunflower oil. You have to get it directly from their website, but it's literally $11, and it's the same thing. So that's one of like the Fully Nourished updates that I will be making because I just literally discovered that, and I think that that's a really great deal. Can spironolactone cause heavy spotting, no ovulation, and spotting approximately every other week, or is this things regulating an inability to do so due to stress? I'm not sure. I've never heard of it causing spotting, but I have had many clients who had like their issues never got better until they went off of spironolactone. I'm not saying that's you. I just know that I've seen a lot of people who kind of hit a plateau and that was kind of the roadblock in their way. But honestly, I'm not sure. It is a diuretic, it's a potassium sparing one, so it's going to spare potassium, but usually like spotting mid-cycle is due to estrogen. So that could possibly be a thing, like things are balancing out. Can saw palmetto act as a diuretic? I definitely pee more than 4 times a day, and like you said, water goes right through me and pee is clear. Honestly, saw palmetto to me is dangerous, and I don't mean that like to be scary. I just think like a lot of naturopaths and like functional medicine doctors just prescribe it like candy. They're like, oh, you have high testosterone, take saw palmetto. And there are so many people that have experienced like such horrible things from taking saw palmetto. I should just say like situations, and it's because it blocks DHT, and when people are taking DHT blockers, they're assuming that the DHT is the problem, and there's actually not a lot of research that supports that. There's a lot of assumptions going on in regards to DHT and hormonal imbalances in PCOS, but there's not a lot of actual evidence. And so personally, I don't know about saw palmetto. I don't think it's very safe. It's one of those herbs that I personally never prescribe to clients, or I shouldn't say prescribe, but never even talk about with clients or never even recommend. Like I don't think it's a very safe herb, in my opinion. You're so naturally beautiful. Oh, thank you. I do not feel that naturally beautiful today. I wanted to ask, what do you recommend to lose water weight if body retains water, dandelion and burdock, or at least something else? I drink 3 liters of water a day at least. Yeah, if you're retaining water, there's a lot of things it could be. Remember, progesterone acts as a diuretic, so if you find it gets worse the second half of the cycle, it could definitely be low progesterone, especially if it's like you feel just so bloated and puffy leading up to your period. I'm trying to think like, I mean, if you're drinking a lot of water and you're just retaining and feeling puffy, just drink when you're thirsty. Don't chug water when you're not thirsty. Usually that takes care of the problem. A lot of people like don't realize that they're bloated from water weight because they're just forcing their cells to take on water constantly. And when they start to just drink when they're thirsty instead of force water into their body, they're not so heavy and bloated and watery. But I mean, another thing that you can do is like cucumber water. So infusing your water with things like cucumber and like you said, like burdock and dandelion are all very helpful. But yeah, I would get to the root of the problem as to why it's happening in the first place than just like taking stuff to try to flush the water out. Just quit my BC pill. Any recommendations for supplements, vitamins I should be taking? I think it's really dependent on the person. I think it's just really important to kind of pay attention, lower stress, make sure you're replenishing the nutrients that were lost. But I couldn't, even like begin to say what you would need because I don't know. I always think usually like a grass-fed beef liver pill is always supportive because it has like a lot of minerals in it. But yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with you, or you don't really know where your hormones are because you just quit. So I would give it a little time and just take care of yourself. I'm never thirsty. I have to force myself to drink water throughout the day. Definitely concerned and don't know why this could be. Because when you have hypothyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism, you don't, your cells don't evaporate or utilize water properly. A lot of times your cells will hold on to water instead of allow the water to evaporate from the skin into the air or to be expelled because your body doesn't want to flush any more minerals out. So often people who have hypothyroidism or high stress hormones, they are either peeing too much, they're peeing a lot and they're not thirsty, or they're constantly thirsty and like water just feels like it's going right through them. So I usually see like those two things. But yeah, I would say if you're not thirsty, have you ever been tested for hypothyroidism? Do you take your temps and pulses? Can you eat high fat and still have a lot of fruit and carbs? No, that would be a horrible idea unless you want to gain a bunch of weight. Yeah, I mean, you can. Of course you can. But it's not something I would recommend for sure, unless you really do need to put on weight. How terrible is coffee for you when you're trying to balance hormones? It's excellent for you. You just have to do it right. Stop using it as a drug and use it as a supplement. Everyone knows I am very pro coffee, just in the right way. So never on an empty stomach, never ever devoid of fat or sugar. Like your coffee should always have a little cream and sugar in it, and probably some protein, like in the form of collagen, and it should never ever be drank unless it's after a very nourishing blood sugar balancing meal. If it's being drank on an empty stomach, then I say it's horrible for balancing hormones. But if it's being drank after breakfast, excellent. It's very rich in B vitamins, niacin, magnesium, trace minerals. So I am a big fan of the coffee. It just can't be abused. Hands and feet are frozen too. Yeah, that's definitely going to be like a sign that things are slow. Minerals to help lower adrenaline surge. Things like magnesium, but the biggest thing is you guys have to understand, why is your body secreting so much adrenaline cortisol? Because it needs the sugar. It needs to create sugar very quickly. And so how is it going to do that? It's going to secrete stress hormones. The easiest way to stop that is by giving your body sugar, giving your body fuel to function so it doesn't have to make fuel. Eating every 3 hours, protein, carb, and fat, is the way that we get rid of stress hormones or lower stress hormones over time. And until we do that, no supplements that we take, no compounds or herbs that we take is ever going to fix our issue until we eat every 3 hours and keep the blood sugar manually balanced so our body and our liver doesn't have to do it for us. Yeah, you really need to debate the world about nutrition, all these messed up trends and misinformation. So glad I found you. God bless you always. Oh, I'm so glad. I wish there were more people talking about what I'm talking about. That's for sure. Would love to know your thoughts on best foods to support the body with hyperthyroidism. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. When it comes to hyperthyroidism, usually it's very similar driving factors to hypothyroidism. A lot of clients that I've had that had hyperthyroidism usually like go from hyper to hypo to hyper to hypo, which shows me there's just some type of imbalance. So I just don't even focus on it. I just focus on balancing blood sugar, supporting the liver, implementing the body with the nutrients that it needs, and usually things will take care of itself. Remember, one of the treatments for hyperthyroidism, like I think in the 1920s, don't quote me on that, was just drinking cabbage juice because it was so goitrogenic. It would like immediately just get rid of it because it slowed the thyroid down really quickly. So don't quote me on that. Do your own research, but just saying. They would use that to treat it. I'm very high stressor and I literally don't know how to stop. I have PTSD. I don't exercise because I'm not trying to stress myself out. Supplements for stress or adrenaline issues. Like I said, the biggest thing that you can do is eat every 3 hours. Start the minute that you wake up. Like, it should be within 30 minutes of waking, and there should be some type of protein, carb, and fat snack every 3 hours until the minute we go to bed. And it can take some time and consistency, but that's the most important thing we can do. And then getting minerals balanced in general. So I personally run a hair tissue mineral analysis with clients because I think it's a very good way to see what's happening intracellularly. There's a lot of like micronutrient tests out there that test what's in the blood, and unfortunately what's in the blood is not always an accurate depiction of what's in the cell, because the body wants to keep the blood levels of, like, for example, calcium pretty balanced, but it's pulling from the cells in order to keep things balanced. So personally, I think running a hair tissue mineral analysis to get to the root of the issue is much more effective than like randomly throwing supplements at it all the day long. It could just be really frustrating. But food first and supplements later. Can you do what I eat in a day segment, please? For sure. I actually just a couple minutes ago went over what I eat in a day. But yeah, I'm actually recording YouTube videos this week. Yay! So YouTube channel should be coming soon. But yeah, I want to like stockpile some videos before I get going, because I know I'll get behind if I don't. And I will do a whole video on what I eat in a day. I love, hi puppies. Yeah, I know you can probably hear my crazy dog barking. He's quite the psycho. I love that you are simple with your meals, helps those who hate or suck at cooking and have to trick their husbands into making the proper food. Yeah, I know, like some people are like, I have husbands that cook, or like boyfriends that cook, and I'm like, nah, I don't, sad. I wish. Maybe I'll be able to like train him. I told him like, well, maybe one day you can be my sous chef, and then you can take over from here. Do I eat Jell-O? Yeah, I do eat Jell-O. I eat it a lot. I eat grape Jell-O. Chickpeas, yay or nay. I love the Banza pasta as a gluten-free alternative. They can be estrogenic, so if you have like estrogen issues or really bad gut issues, doing too much of them will be a problem. But I don't think like having, a sporadic chickpea pasta is going to do much unless you are struggling with active issues. I crave milk before periods and at the beginning, but it causes cramping. What is possibly going on with that? I mean, you probably crave the trace minerals and the calcium in the milk. There's trace amounts of magnesium and iodine in milk, and it's very protein rich. So, does it cause intestinal cramping? Because that could just be a sign that you're not digesting it optimally. But craving it doesn't mean that your body doesn't need it. It just means maybe your body craves it, but then you're not being able to break it down properly, or as well as you would want to. How many milligrams of grass-fed liver pills would you suggest? I don't really know the milligram dosage. I personally just take what's on the bottle, what their recommendation is. Every brand's going to be a little different. So some brands will be 4, some brands will be 6. So usually I'll take, if I'm first starting a supplement, I'll take the max dose just to see, if it makes a difference. But once I start to feel a difference, I usually move down to half the dose of most. Is fruit the best form of sugar to reduce stress? Yeah, I would say yes, just because it's so mineral and water rich. It's a really good source of hydration and also minerals that is very easy to digest. That's going to be mostly tropical fruits and stone fruits. So things like cherries, apricots, peaches are what you would consider a stone fruit. And then tropical fruits like papaya, mango, even a little bit of pineapple. Those tend to be easy to digest. Cherimoya, trying to think what are they, longans? Tropical fruits are really easy to digest. And then some of the more fiber rich ones can be hard to digest for some people. So strawberries, berries, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, they're so good for you because they're so low in sugar. And I'm like, I literally want the sugar. So if they're in season, they can be really good, but I wouldn't consume those foods just because they're so high in fiber. A lot of times the fiber is irritating for people. I use coconut oil as a moisturizer on my face. Is this okay? I don't see a problem with it. My mother is experiencing restless legs at night when trying to sleep. She's perimenopausal and our doctor told her it was due to estrogen drop. Anything she can do to help the restless legs? I would just try like some magnesium oil on the legs before I went to bed. I would say that probably will help, maybe. Do you think hemp seeds are a good source of protein? No. Nuts and seeds provide minimal protein, you guys. Don't buy into the lie. It's, remember, it's all about digestibility and absorbability, bioavailability, and then also looking at a plant's biological purpose. Remember, a nut and a seed is literally meant to be the next generation of plants. Do you think that nut or that seed is going to make it really easy for you to just eat it and digest it and absorb anything from it? No. It's going to make it very irritating for your digestive tract, and it's going to hopefully make it so that you never eat it again. And so you got to think of nuts and seeds in that light, that plants are not stupid. They have a lot of intelligence, even if it's not, like a human intelligence. It's still, they are very intelligent, and they do have a lot of survival instincts, and they are, they don't want you eating their babies, okay? Just keep that in mind. And so no, they're not a good source of protein at all. I'm struggling with low stomach acid and H. pylori. How long can it take to get back to normal levels of stomach acid? Go in the natural route. Thanks, Jess. It can just depend on how much stress you're under. Usually we get H. pylori because we have low stomach acid in the first place. And so if we know that and we understand that, we kind of got to think like, why do I have low stomach acid in the first place? And usually it's because of stress. If your body doesn't have the right environment or the right nutrients to make stomach acid, it's not going to make enough. And so biggest thing, lowering stress first, providing the minerals needed, things like magnesium and sodium and potassium, copper, zinc, very important for making stomach acid. But you know what's the most important? Is bioavailable animal protein. This is why all vegans have low stomach acid. And so if you are not eating enough protein, you're going to have low stomach acid. And then also, if you have low stomach acid, it's very hard to digest protein. So it's like this kind of vicious cycle. So usually what I do is I use mastic gum, not the like crappy supplement form, but the one that comes from Greece that is actual resin. And we chew on that throughout the day. We instead of gum, we kind of suck on that. We let that mastic do its tricks, get rid of that H. pylori, and then we work on stomach acid. And usually if someone has very low stomach acid, hydrochloric acid supplementation is necessary for a little while so you can digest protein in order to make more stomach acid. Because you need to be able to break down protein and use those protein building blocks to make stomach acid. So it's kind of like you have to throw a wrench in the wheel and start the vicious cycle at some point. So, but you never want to take HCl or hydrochloric acid if you have H. pylori. It usually can blow like ulcers in the gut wall. The milk intensifies period cramps. Okay, I would say it probably is a little bit irritating to you, maybe causing a little bit of inflammation, unfortunately. But craving it shows that you probably have nutrients in it that you need. So over time, you'll probably be able to digest it better without as much irritation, and it probably won't do that. Or maybe try like goat's milk or something like that. Maybe a more A2 milk, like sheep's milk, goat's milk. Struggling with getting my appetite up. I find myself having to force foods, especially later in the day and evening. I would love to be hungry again soon. Think about like stoking the fire. When you're first building a fire or a fire is about to go out and you want to, get it going again. I don't know the proper camping terms. You don't like throw a huge log in it because usually it'll just go out, right? What you do is you start to put like small pieces of wood and let them kind of like the fire get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you keep doing that. You keep feeding the fire until it gets to be big. And then you throw the logs in the fire because now it's burning. And so it's very similar with appetite. I usually recommend like clients that have very little appetite, I have them do small, tiny little snacks throughout the day, even if it's like very simple bites, like a little bit of cheese and honey, bite. Then like 30 minutes later, bite. A little 30 minutes later, bite. Until we start to like see like, oh, I'm hungry. Like I'm starting to get really hungry. If the appetite doesn't get better by like stoking the fire, then we need to explore gut issues going on, because digestive inflammation and just having a really wrecked digestive system can definitely cause us to like kind of just be nauseous and not really feel like we want to digest food. So those are some things to think about as well. Like if stoking the fire doesn't work, what else could be going on, and look to the gut. What are your thoughts on sprouting beans and our legumes for easier digestion? They're easier digested. I just don't understand why people want to eat them. There's so many like anti-nutrients in those foods that are just like anti-thyroid and binding to the minerals in your gut. I personally would not eat them unless I was like in optimal health, and I surely wouldn't eat them more than like once or twice a week, just because of their but again, everyone's a little different, and so some people tend to do really well on those things a couple times a week. So sprouting them is always a good idea, or pressure cooking them, which breaks down a lot of the anti-nutrients. But we should always keep in mind that those foods tend to be more on the estrogenic side. They're definitely a little harder to break down, irritating, fermentable fibers. So usually we need optimal gut health in order to digest those foods well. But everyone's a little different. Some people really thrive on foods like that here and there. So I would say sprouted or pressure cooked is probably best. My friend with PCOS, who I've been talking to about your account, just told me she's going vegetarian. How about a nice spiel on that? She's suffering with terrible anxiety right now. Actually, I would recommend you watching my vegan highlight story. I think it will give you like some really good talking points to bring up, because I know it can be really hard, and like some people are going vegetarian for specific reasons. They think it's healthier, or they've been told it's healthier, but you have to actually look at the science behind it. Most women with PCOS have really severe protein deficiency, and so usually when you go vegetarian, you tend to not like worry about what's in food. You're just like, oh, it's vegetarian, so it's good, and you're not really worried about like PUFAs or polyunsaturated fat, like the canola oil or soybean oil. You're not really worried like, how's this food affecting me on a hormonal level? But I think some people just need to like try it themselves. She'll probably get worse anxiety while she's on it, honestly. But I would check out my vegan highlight story. It'll give you some good like pointers. Can we drink the coffee with collagen gelatin, half and half sugar prior to breakfast, or food first regardless? Food first regardless. Never ever coffee on an empty stomach, ever. It's just gonna send you on a blood sugar spiral all day long. What is your favorite way to reduce stress when things in your environment cannot possibly change until a while? I just do the best I can. There have been times, you guys, believe it or not, where I have very stressful seasons of life, and I just have to just power through. And last year was a lot of that. This year is not as much of that. I've tried to limit that as much as possible, but there are still days where I have to do that just because it's my life, it's my job. So I will make sure that my environment, when I get home or when I am in my bedroom, for example, because when I'm working, I'm not in my bedroom, but when I am like gonna relax for the evening, I am going to be in my bedroom and have that be a place of peace. And so usually like I showed on my stories the other day, I got orange tinted light bulbs. That really helps me because it kind of mimics like the glow of candlelight. I'll usually do some type of like relaxing bedtime snack. I've been really digging some ice cream mixed with a little bit of glycine powder. It's funny enough. You could also do like collagen or gelatin. I just like the pure glycine because it really relaxes me. And usually I'll read a book. I try to limit screens as much as possible when I'm stressed because it can be a really helpful distraction, but you find that you're not sleeping as well, you're kind of more restless, you don't feel so like in tune with yourself. And so just switching out your screen time, whether it's like Netflix or I don't have a TV in my room, but I will periodically watch like Netflix on my iPad, and so I try to get out of that habit when I'm stressed out because it can really cause me to be really stressed. And reading a book really causes me to like slow down and read it line by line and like not be like so bombarded by blue light. So that's kind of like my favorite thing. I keep my routine very simple, and I always make sure to just keep my meals and snacks up and make time for exercise when I can, because I do find that getting out and like getting some exercise pretty frequently does help me feel better when I go and strength train. Carnivore diet, thoughts, so much hype around it. Yeah, it's one of those things, it's just like extremism on the vegan side. I don't think eating meat only is going to fix your issues. It's going to feel healing for a while because you're limiting your fibers, but I recommend a very low fiber diet anyways because I don't like feeding a bunch of nasty bacteria in your small intestine. So, it's one of those things where I honestly see the carnivore diet as just like another kind of quick fix type thing, but eventually you'll start to run off of stress hormones because your body does optimally run off of glucose. And so if you're not providing glucose, you're going to have problems at some point because you're running off of stress. Your body's manufacturing glucose using adrenaline, which can feel really anti-inflammatory. Don't get me wrong, cortisol is a steroid, so it's going to have some anti-inflammatory effects. So you're going to feel like while you're running off of cortisol, like, ooh, I feel awesome. I feel so energized, so mentally clear. My pain's gone. My inflammation's gone. Awesome. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day, whether it's a year from now or 6 months from now, and you're like, wow, I look like I've aged like 20 years. Or I look gaunt because you've eaten through a lot of your tissues, collagen, and stuff like that. Okay, guys, Instagram's cutting me off. I'm going to try to get through like my question and answer boxes, so I'll go live again. If I didn't get to your question, I'm sorry.